So I got the Rebels gear on today. I am going to be a little bit of a rebel. I'm going to do... It's not an anti-Cheika thing, but as I record this, the Wallabies are at the bottom of the Rugby Championship. There is still one game to play, but by the time this video goes up, it'll probably be all done and dusted. They're not at a good place. Even if they win that final game in Argentina, it's still not been the best tournament, and there are a lot of people calling for Cheika's head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick an alternative Wallabies team. I kind of did this with the All Blacks. I picked a C team based on guys, domestically in New Zealand who could play for the All Blacks if there was an injury crisis, and I did it with the Box, picking an overseas team. This is a mixture of guys based domestically in Australia who weren't chosen by Cheika, and some guys who are abroad. The way I've kind of restricted myself on it is none of the guys who were called up even at all, even that initial squad who was called up, I think it was 38-man squad, so guys like Latu, Meeks, Rona and Pitaya, I think Navalu, all these guys who initially got called up and then got cut, I've excluded them as well. So I'm going with guys solely ones overlooked by Cheika, and guys who are admittedly ineligible for the Wallabies, some of them, because they haven't played enough games and are based abroad. So they don't actually meet the criteria. Cheika couldn't pick them even if he wanted to. But I want to kind of explore the depth in Aussie rugby. Is it as bad as people think, or is it a bit better? And see how this team compares with that current Wallabies team, which, to be fair, still has a lot of guys, big names in their prime, to see how this team looks against that. So I'll start with the front row. It's a whole bunch of guys in their late 20s. It is loosehead James Slipper, hooker Damien Fitzpatrick, and tight head Sef Fagase. So Slipper obviously has had issues with his, it was kind of a drugs, I think, issue. So I don't think he was ever going to get picked, but in terms of a player who you could pick if you were going to help him with off-field stuff and he was in his right kind of state of mind and state of kind of mental well-being to play, I don't see why you don't play him. That red scrum has been really good, and he has good skills around the park as well. Likewise with Sef Fagase, so he's a part of that red scrum. I know he's kind of in there with Taniela Tupou, who gets all the glory, being the Tongan Thor and the 22-year-old wonder kid, but at 27, Fagase is going to do a solid job for you as well. Damien Fitzpatrick at 29 years old, a hooker. I picked him as my initial, when there was no Polota now and there was no Stephen Moore for the June tests. I thought at 29 Fitzpatrick would be the guy, but he hasn't been looked at all. It's been Pangamosa, it's been Jordan Ulisi, who I haven't considered him because he's been injured, and other guys as well, Falafainga. So yeah, I put in Fitzpatrick. He's a solid, reliable, dependable number 2. I should say that for these guys, I haven't done too much. I know some guys, some like Ulisi is a obvious one. He is injured, so I haven't selected him at all. Some of these guys, they may or may not be injured. For the All Blacks video, I was researching a lot about who was injured and who was well, and by the time I got the video up, those things had all changed. So I'm mostly picking the names. The guys who are blatantly injured out for ages, I've ruled out, but some of these guys may well be injured. Second row, I've gone with Sam Carter and Will Skelton. So kind of big names. One's domestic and one's abroad. Carter playing for the Brumbies. He's one of their lead line-out men. He's 2 meters tall, 116 kgs. Not the best guy around the park, but he's serviceable. And, when you've got Skelton next to you, you can leave some of that around the park stuff to him. As long as Carter gets the line-out ball, I'm pretty happy. Skelton's dropped a lot of weight since he's been with Saracens. I believe he's down from 140 kilos down to closer to 120. So he's a lot more mobile. He's probably going to be more able to go 80 minutes if he needs to. 26 years old, 2.03 meters. So he's a big, big boy. And, he's probably playing the best rugby of his career at the minute. The back row, which is an area I believe Australia's got a fair bit of depth. On the blind side, at number 6, I'm putting Scott Fadi. He's one of the oldest guys I got on the list. He's 34. He's playing really well for Leinster. He's one of their key men. They don't have many overseas players at Leinster, and for him to be getting regular game time. It must be pretty good. He's got a bit of mongrel in him. He's a bit of an enforcer. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need that guy. I believe a little bit of what Australia lacks with Hannigan at 6 is a bit of that grit and determination and ability to kind of rile up the opposition. Fadi's got that. He's 1.98 m, good in the line out. He's going to do a job. On the open side was a hard choice because even with Pocock and Hooper not in my consideration because they got called up, I've gone with Folau Fainga. He's 27, 1.83 m tall, so not that tall but not small, 101 kilos. He's definitely mobile. He's not that big, but I mean I could have gone for Chris Alcock from the Force. I've always liked him. I think he's underrated. I could have gone with Lachlan McCaffrey. He's been playing really well for the Brumbies. Cusack for the Brumbies, former Sevens guys have been doing well. So there's lots of guys who I could have picked at number 7. Number 8, again, there is a bit of depth. I've gone with Sean Mcmann. He's only 24. He's 100 kilos, 1.85 m. He's in Japan. He was one of those guys who was the bright star of kind of Aussie rugby, but ended up abandoning ship. I mean, he's young enough that he could still definitely come back and do a job. It's just a pity we don't see him playing anymore. But I'm still kind of fingers crossed that he'll be back at some point. So that's the forward pack. Skeleton boosts the size a bit because it's not the biggest forward pack. Fadi, as I said, has got a bit of that. He's not small either, but he's got a bit of grit to add. So how does that compare with the current Wallabies forward pack? Well, Pocock and Hooper are doing their thing, but in some areas I would give this pack the nod. In the backs, number 9, I've gone with Nick White. The guy's got a big boot on him. He's not the most creative number 9, but he is definitely solid. He's 28 years old, 1.75 m, 80 odd kilos, so he's not going to get run right over. I'm going to leave the creativity to the man outside him, who is probably going to be a pretty controversial pick. I'm going to go with Quade Cooper at number 10. He's not had a lot of game time outside club rugby and the NRC in Australia. There is talk of him playing for these guys in Super Rugby next year. Hopefully he gets a contract because he's too good a player to be just sitting around. But I know a lot of people don't like him, especially here in New Zealand. 1.86 m, 92 kilos. Defensively not the most solid, but creatively does things that other people can't do. And if his knees are all good, he can do a bit of jinking and jiving when he's up to it. Inside centre, I've gone with Joe Tamani. He's another one playing over in Europe at Leinster. It is Leinster, isn't it? Yes. His hair has grown very long since I've seen him last, and it is pretty striking, but he's 28 years old. He can play on the outside backs if we need to. 1.88 m, 100 odd kilos. He's got gas, he's versatile. He's probably still yet to find his best form this season, but based on reputation alone, I'm pretty happy to put him in there. It's an area where if you've not got Beale, when you're playing for the regular Wallabies, there's a bit of a question about who's going to be there. Obviously, Beale's been moved into 10 recently, so Tamua's been going in there. But have Tamani running at Beale or Tamua, and that'll be an interesting matchup. Outside centre, I've gone with another guy who's a bit more senior. I've gone with old two dads. I've gone with Adam Ashley Cooper. He's 34 years old. I think he's playing his rugby in Japan now. 1.85 m, 98 odd kilos. Plays half the backline positions. Tackles 2 guys at once. Scores tries. Got a good fend. Very good defensively. Solid pick. I'm not sure how he's been playing at 34. I haven't seen him playing for a long time, but he's always been one of my favourite Australian players, so I couldn't leave him out of the team. Left wing, a recent departure from Aussie rugby. I'm going with Tangele Naiaravoro, 26 years old, 1.95 m, so a big boy, plus 120 kilos. He's bigger than most of the forwards he plays with in terms of his weight, and he's got gas. Defensively susceptible, but get him running at some of these other guys, and he's going to put the fear of God into a lot of the people that he's running up against because he is a big guy. And with some of the other guys around him, hopefully they can kind of cover up for some of his defensive frailties. Right wing, I've gone with Henry Spate. I could have picked a few other guys, but I've gone with Spate. 30 years old, 1.86 m, 97 kilos, playing at Ulster, I believe, at the moment. Scored a good try against the Cheetahs the other day to tie the game up right on full time. I think I kind of had him written off at the halfway point of Super Rugby last year, but he kind of came good for the Brumbies. So yeah, I don't think he's one to totally write off at this point, although he has got a fair bit of work ahead of him in terms of getting back into that Wallabies team. But he is going to be in Australia next year, so he's giving him a chance for that World Cup. Fullback, I've gone with another controversial player. I've gone with James O'Connor. Another guy who probably didn't quite match up to his potential. With him, it's due to some of the off-field stuff. Didn't quite go according to plan. Got into a bit of trouble. Ended up leaving Aussie Rugby. Came back. Didn't really have the impact we thought he could, and left again. So we haven't seen him for a while in Australia. Give him a shot at fullback. He's like Adam Ashley Cooper in that he can play half the goal, half the back line. He can kick the goals if he's in better form than Cooper as well. So, I mean, Nick White can kick goals as well. There's plenty of goal kicking in there. Yeah, he might have to, because I'm not sure what Naravoro's boots like, but if he passes it on to old James O'Connor, that should be fine. So that's the starting 15. The bench I'll kind of go over a bit briefly. Anarao Rangi, or Rangi if you in Australia. Rangi is a hooker, plays for the Rebels. He's a fiery character, but he can do a job if you can kind of control his temper. I've gone with Greg Holmes and Paddy Ryan for my loose head and tight head backup. The front row is perhaps the weakest part of this team. A lot of those good props have been taken by Cheika, so in my anti-Cheika team, I've had to kind of cast the net a wee bit wide. I may have forgotten somebody, but I've gone with those two guys. I'm not even sure if Paddy Ryan's going to keep playing rugby, but I'm calling him up. Second row cover, I've gone with Matt Phillip from the Rebels. He's another one who's probably unlucky to miss out on that wider training squad for the Wallabies this year. I think he's about 24. He's got a good work rate on him. Makes line breaks every now and again, so he's a very kind of physical guy. Not the tallest, but I mean, I've got Carter and Skelton topping 2 meters, so I'm not too worried about that. Plus Fadi on the blind side, so there's no worries there. Loose forward, I've got a bit of height here. I've got Lepeti Tamani. He can cover the second row if needs be, but I got him in there as kind of a backup back rower, and he adds a bit of punch coming off the bench. Backs, reserve scrum half, I've gone with Sturzaker. So I've got a few Rebels or ex-Rebels here. Sturzaker can do a job to cover number 9. I've got Liliafano to cover, Christian Liliafano to cover, he can kind of cover inside center, he can cover fly half. If needs be, he's another guy who can kick goals. He's 30, so you know, he can still do a job. And outside back kind of wing cover, I've gone with Chris Feawaisotia. He's another guy who was probably kind of unlucky to miss out on the team entirely, especially with, I mean, you look at it was Kuridrani and Karevi out, so you thought he might have kind of got the nod, but not to be. Haven't really got a specialised fullback. I haven't seen Phil Waisatia play fullback, so I guess I'd have to get old Adam Ashley Cooper to drop back to fullback if something happened to James O'Connor. I'm not sure at 34 how mobile old Ashley Cooper is, but based on reputation alone, I would have him covering that spot. I'll trust him to do a job. So yeah, that's my my alternative Wallabies team. I really do think in places it probably has the edge over the Wallabies, but like I said, in that Wallabies kind of current team with likes of Falau, Guinea, Beale, there's a lot of talented guys. You know, Taniela Tupou's younger coming through. Isaac Rodda's been one of the most. He's only 21. Ridiculous, impressive young second rower. So there is a lot of talent in that team if they were to go head to head. But maybe on their day, these guys would give them a run for their money. Perhaps some of these guys should even be in Cheika's frame for 2019. I'm not sure if he'd be able to do kind of a Rassie Erasmus and get those selection rules loosened. I'm not sure if Australian Rugby would want to do that, but there's definitely some Australian talent at home and abroad. So I don't think it's quite all doom and gloom. I know things haven't been going that well of late, but there's enough talent here, kind of old and young, and other guys who I haven't even mentioned. I'm sure you guys will let me know some of the ones I've missed. Who could kind of back on up as well. So yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on this team. How do you think they would kind of go head to head with Cheika's team? And who else have I missed that you guys would put in? Let me know your thoughts. Talk to you again soon. See you later.